What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So do you know how we can tell that 2021 has officially started? Because an analyst predicted that the Switch Pro was going to happen this year, kind of like last year, then the year before that. Hey, they did at least call the Switch Mini. That ended up being correct with the Switch Lite, but we'll talk about the newest prediction here today. Also, we're going to talk about the PlayStation 5 sales in Japan once again, and even a new report kind of going over Sony moving away from Japan and how they're positioning the new PlayStation there. And it looks like DSiWare games are randomly disappearing now off of the 3DS. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with an update to a story from yesterday's Newswave, that being about Kingdom Come Deliverance. If you remember, for some reason, this just showed up on Nintendo's website, and no real announcement for it. It's just, there it is on Nintendo's upcoming releases for the Switch. Well, it looks like the PR manager at Warhorse Studios put out a tweet talking about this situation. As much as I would love a Kingdom Come Deliverance version on Switch, unfortunately there is none planned at the moment. We are investigating who was so ambitious to think differently, but as for now, mess, sorry guys. So if Nintendo accidentally leaked that ahead of time and they're just trying to cover, that's not a bad tweet to do so, but let's say, yeah, the game's really not coming to the Switch. Why was it on Nintendo's website? What a random thing to list on the website. Although, we've seen some very strange things pop up. We just talked about Banjo-Kazooie and Blast Corps from Microsoft Japan Studios as like the publisher. Like, why was that there? Maybe they got a new employee who's managing the website and they're entering data and they're trying to get the ropes or learn the ropes and they keep doing weird things and messing up. That's all I can think of. Or they're just having some fun before like their last day at the office and they're moving on to a new job. I don't know. It's just strange things are happening on Nintendo's site currently with these games just randomly being listed. That doesn't necessarily mean that Kingdom Come Deliverance won't ever come to the Switch. Just, I guess for now, it's not happening at least on February 18th. Also, in less than 1 month, February 2nd, we will have Ys 9 release on the PlayStation. It'll be coming to the Switch and PC over the summer, but it's hitting the PlayStation first, and I'm really excited to check this out. I had a lot of fun with Ys 8, thought it was an awesome action RPG. And seeing Ys 9, there was a lot of excitement around it, and I was really happy to see that a demo was coming out, and in fact, it dropped yesterday on the PlayStation 4. You can go on there, just search up Ys 9, and you should be able to download the demo. It's just over 4 gigabytes, so it's not a big demo, nothing like that, but we do have a description here for it. Choose between one of 2 key locations to explore and experiment with the brand new gifts and monstrums before your full adventure begins. And there were some people asking if this would work on the PlayStation 5. Well, I went on the PlayStation Network with my PS5, searched up Ys 9, and it did come up. I was able to download and install it, which it didn't take long at all to download. That's the really cool thing about the PS5 right now. It downloads stuff really fast. I think that download in less than like a minute. It's like 40 seconds or so to get that done. And yeah, it's Ys. It's fun. I know it's a good action RPG that I was playing. And the demo was kind of short, at least on the side that I played it. I think I spent like 5 or 6 minutes in it, and then it was just like, oh, you're done on this path. There's 2 different options to pick when you first start it up. But yeah, it'll work fine on your PlayStation 5. Just search it up on the store, go ahead, download it, and give it a try. Oh, and the Medium is coming out at the end of this month, January 28th, and that will be only on the Series X, the Series S, and the PC. It will not be on Xbox One console. So if you're looking for more of a next-gen experience, I guess look forward to that one. Pretty interesting looking horror game with a dual reality setup. So I'll be curious how that plays into the game overall and any different puzzles I guess they try to add in there. But we did have a full interview, and they even talked about performance mode in the game. We have 2 supported ray tracing modes for the medium performance mode that has enabled reflections and ray tracing ambient occlusion in all performant location when only one world is rendered, and quality mode, which features reflections, ray tracing ambient occlusion, hybrid translucent, and some ray tracing shadows enabled for the whole game world. The latter is paired with DLSS and some other NVIDIA improvements, but requires a lot of hardware power. The team is still working to optimize the medium across Xbox Series X and S, and we will be able to share more details on these versions closer to launch. Now, they also talked a little bit about the exclusivity. It appears to be a timed exclusive with Microsoft, but they just simply said, hey, we're not talking about other platforms. We are simply focusing on getting this game out on the Series X and the Series S. It was already delayed out of December, so makes perfect sense. You gotta at least get the game out somewhere. So looking forward to this one. Cool that we'll have some options for performance, which I guess will give us better frame rate in some cases. This might be a game, because it's going to be slower paced, that people don't mind like the 30 frames per second cap or something to play through it if it looks that much better. But exciting stuff. Looking forward to this one, which by the way is going to Game Pass day one. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're starting right away with the Nintendo Switch Pro. The Switch Pro is like Metroid Prime Trilogy. If we just keep saying it over and over again, it'll happen, I think, right? Here's hoping that at least Metroid Prime Trilogy happens eventually. But if we go over here to gamesindustry.biz, they went around, as they do at the beginning of every year, ask several different analysts their thoughts on what could happen in gaming and other areas as well in tech going into the new year, this being 2021. One of those analysts, Dr. Sirkin Toto, Kantan Games, did talk a bit about last year's prediction, which right at the top, Switch Pro launch, the most controversial prediction in my now infamous 2020 contribution, turned out to be not correct. Which brings us to their 2021 predictions, Switch Pro launches. Yes, I know. I predict a beefed up 4K device is coming during Nintendo's next financial year, and let it be said, Switch is just a word. Now, it's very important to note that they said next financial year, because that will run into 2022 technically. So while these are for 2021, I guess it could launch in March of 2022 and they would still be correct here. But to hear the idea of Switch is just a name does bring up a whole other conversation, because we've talked about this before. The Switch Mini or Switch Lite, when that was being rumored, it didn't make a lot of sense to people, because it said, well, it doesn't switch, that you can't call it a Switch. Well, they did, because it's just branding, that's all. The Switch Lite fits next to the hybrid because it's not a hybrid, it's just a cheaper alternative that's handheld only. And the new rumor that appears to be gaining traction with a lot of people, which is very interesting to see, is if Nintendo decided to do more of a box next to your TV, like a home console, like a docked-only Switch, basically, a game console, as we're used to with like the Xbox or the PlayStation, one that they don't have to think about the portable aspect and design around that, but it plays the same games. It just might be set up a bit better for something like 4K. And that does kind of lean into the idea that Nintendo has had for a little while here, with the Switch being more of a family of devices, not just one system. And the Switch Lite showing up shows that they're not concerned about it being only one side of the hybrid system and it's still being called the Switch. So if you have something that's just like a console box next to the hybrid Switch still has a reason to exist. The Switch Lite, as a handheld only device, still has a reason to exist. And taking the idea of the battery out and the overall compact form, yeah, they could probably do something with a 4K system that takes the same cartridges, and probably you pop your memory card in there, sure, and it would still be a fairly small box, I would assume. And like I said, every year until it happens, or until we get to next generation for the Switch, a Switch Pro will be predicted. Like, it's just gonna happen. New hardware is something Nintendo does with their handheld devices specifically, like, all the time. I mean, how many different variants of the 3DS did we get? Even when we thought it was done, they showed up with the 2DS XL. So the thing with Nintendo, very difficult to predict, and I wouldn't be shocked if instead of them just doing a more beefed up hybrid system, if they really did just show up with a box and they were like, this is just part of the Switch family, and yes, it's still called the Switch. Although, what do they call it then? Because they can't call it the new Nintendo Switch. They can't call it the Switch Pro. Ooh, that's a tough one there. What would they call a console in the Switch family? Next up, let's talk about the Famitsu Sales charts. Now, we haven't had official charts, I guess, released just yet. I believe over on Twitter, David did tweet about what was going on with sales numbers in general for consoles and some games. So we have some information, but we do have info for the PlayStation 5, and unfortunately, it's trending in the wrong direction overall in Japan. But let's go over here to some of the info that we have, which does include the top 5 games. We have Momotaro, which this is out of control for Konami. This has been a massive success for them, by the way, in Japan, and it's probably gonna end up being like their best-selling game in Japan, just outright. Momotaro on the Switch. It alone is moving Switch consoles like crazy right now. Animal Crossing, they're at number 2, Ring Fit Adventure at 3, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 4, and then Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at 5. As expected, the top 5 games in Japan from this past week, that being December 21st to the 27th, are all Switch games. Moving over to the hardware, Nintendo Switch at the top, 278 1,000 units. Yeah, that's getting out of control there. Now, you're going to see it start to dip down a bit as we get into January, obviously, with the sales charts, but like super impressive there from the Switch. And 2021 should be pretty strong for Nintendo in terms of software, so I expect their year coming up, especially if they do have another revision of some kind for the Switch to put alongside the Lite and the hybrid unit. Yeah, their sales are just going to continue to climb there. The PS5, though, below that, 13,000 units. It is trending in the wrong direction, so much so that the PS4 is actually competing with it with 12,600 units, which tells me that people probably just went to buy a PlayStation 5. They weren't there and they said, okay, yeah, I guess give me a PlayStation 4. And we just talked about it yesterday. Sony's starting to seemingly discontinue PlayStation 4 systems in Japan. They'll probably have like 1 or 2 SKUs left over. They don't need all the extras like the Glacier White and all these other ones. They just need like 1 or 2, the basic slim model, maybe different hard drive sizes, but eventually, there just won't be any PS4s there, so we assume that production overall will ramp up more and more so that supply can start to strengthen in Japan. However, Ace Research Institute talked a bit about this, even pointing out different things alongside of gamesindustry.biz as to why Sony, I guess, is showing signs of moving away from Japan as one of their major markets. Now, this is translated from gamesindustry.biz Japan. It says the launch of PS4 in 2013 was made a latecomer to Japan. It came out months after it dropped in North America. From the fall of 2018, we'll introduce our own expression restrictions and suppress the release of titles for Japanese users. What happened here, of course, this is the policy that Sony seems to have internally that we have seen several publishers, developers in Japan kind of complain about even, where they are more restricted based on what they want to put out, whereas Nintendo's like, yeah, as long as it passes the ESRB, we're good. And there was no Japanese narration in the introduction video distribution of PS5, and there were defects in fonts and translations. And remember, this was a big one. They changed the enter button from circle to cross because it is a global standard. Yes, in Japan, it was cross was cancel and circle was confirm. That's why I like play Metal Gear Solid. It threw me off bad, right? Because circle was confirm and I didn't get that. But now, yeah, Sony has basically made that the default, where circle is cancel and cross is confirm. And then we can go over to the chart here from Famitsu that just shows where the PS5 exactly is compared to all other systems really that have released in Japan, and it's not looking great for the PS5. And like I said before, I know we have supply constraints in Japan, but we're also relying on Sony to really have a focus on just shipping consoles there, whereas they seem much more focused right now on the US and other parts like Europe. Like Japan seems to be kind of fading out for Sony right now, and I mean, you see Nintendo. We just talked about them selling over 250,000 Switch systems in Japan. The PS5 isn't going to catch up to the Switch. The PS5 is going to be okay, being above the Xbox, but well below the Switch in terms of overall install size in Japan, which tells me that, yes, a lot of Japanese developers and publishers are going to start more shifting resources over to the Switch itself, unless, I don't know, Sony has a massive turnaround here with how they are approaching the Japanese market. It's not looking great for the PS5 in Japan. I think for me, as soon as they killed the Vita completely and we realized that they weren't going to do anything else after that with a handheld, that was kind of it. I was like, yeah, that is a device you would want to have for Japan, because the Vita was still really popular after Sony discontinued it. Like, people were finding them in the back of stores to buy them. We were covering it here where hundreds of Vitas would sell, even though Sony wasn't producing them anymore. It was very strange. But yeah, once they got out of the handheld market and they make this massive monolithic system, yeah, it seems like Sony's focus is heavily shifting westward. Next up, let's talk about the NPCs in Breath of the Wild, because there was a really cool discovery that seemed to be made on Twitter, and I did not even think about this, but what if Nintendo had used advanced Miis as the NPCs that you see when you're running around in Zelda Breath of the Wild? Well, check this tweet out right here. This is from I'm Alice saying, "Hi, Mii expert here. Turns out the NPCs in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild used an advanced version of the Mii format. This means that with modding, you can inject Miis into the game. Thinking about opening commissions for Mii injects, both screenshots/images of your Mii and mod downloads. And we can see several examples here where they have like Barrett from Smash Ultimate 10.1.0. There's Matt Wii from Wii Sports. Yeah, I mean, they look the same. They convert over pretty well. It's an advanced form of the Mii, apparently. There's Alice, my personal Mii. Got the hair color wrong, as I mentioned. I had to rush this. Also, I talk about why the hair type is a little different in the comments. Yeah, so it does look like you do have to mod the game and do other things to get this in there, but it's very interesting that this was found, that they're just advanced Miis. I guess, hey, you can contact them and they can inject your Mii into Breath of the Wild. Curious how that process works as well. Seems like it is quite a bit of work to do that, but an interesting find there for Breath of the Wild. In our last bit of news, let's talk about the DSiWare games that appear to be disappearing now off of the shop, and people started noticing this on the 3DS. We can see this tweet here. This is from Come Out Punching, says, PSA to 3DS gamers and DS fans, all DSiWare games released before mid-May 2011 have been deactivated on the eShop, including the classic Shantae's Risky Revenge. Luckily, I got it on my DSi before that shop shut down. Grab from those still for sale while you can, Rex and Thread. And then we can see delisted games here, quote tweeting it saying, looks like on January 1st, Nintendo of America pulled the plug on DSi titles on the 3DS eShop that were 10 years old. 2010 releases and older are gone. My checks show most titles still available in EU, but not sure about AU, CA, JP, etc. And really looking at this, I do wonder if this is just an accident, because January 1st, I guess just overall the clock ticks over. Okay, now it's 2021. I don't know, maybe there was some kind of time limit that's just in the background for the eShop or the shop itself, and it just disappeared after that through an automatic thing. That's all I can think of here, because it'd be very interesting that they would just start ripping down DSiWare games like that without warning. I haven't seen any warning, and that's why people are so caught off guard by this. So I'm curious if that is just a mistake and they'll restore them. But it does, once again, bring up the all-digital future and the concerns people have. We already talked about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which is coming out. Again, awesome to see that, but we need a physical copy of that. And the reason we need that is because these digital games can disappear. It's really tough when we think about that going into a future where it could be all digital games, where they could just drop off the face of the earth at any time. So here's just another example. We'll see what Nintendo does about this. They at least would make a statement, I assume. I mean, I guess it's also coming down to how many people are still using the 3DS or a DSi for that matter that much, but I still see people sometimes in the comments mention that they're playing the 3DS while they're listening to a video or something. So, hey, people are still out there playing the 3DS and has a great library, so I get it. But yeah, DSiWare games are going to be very difficult to find after they're removed from the digital service. You'd have to start modding and hacking up a system to get them back. Not a great look, and again, makes me a bit concerned about the all-digital future. Then we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Challenger, saying F-Zero needs to exist as an actual racing game. Think Midnight Club, Need for Speed, and Forza. Interesting. So you're saying they'd go more in depth with the customization of your ship, that you're zooming through these different loops and tracks and all of this, and that would actually be pretty cool because they could be extremely creative with things. They're not tied to, oh, it's this brand of tire or this intake or these exhausts or anything like that. They could make parts up. And that's the best part. They could have all kinds of really cool things happening. You know, I like that idea. What if we got the point where they had gear ratios and tuning and all this stuff in F-Zero? I guess that would put it in the more mature realm over Mario Kart. I mean, you do change some parts out, but we're not talking about, I don't know, would they go with horsepower still, or would they do something else? Hard to say there, but you know, I do like that idea. I still think they would want to change the overall idea of the game. I like the idea of it being more of an open world racing game, adventure style. That would be cool, but at least we're coming up with some ideas here. Yes, a more mature, maybe more complicated, more customizable racing game is a route they could go. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whether it's the Switch Pro once again being predicted for this year. They gotta be right eventually. At least I think. What if Nintendo just never does a Switch Pro and we get to the next Switch and we're like, well, all right, I guess we're done with that topic. Except then we start talking about the Switch 2 Pro, maybe. Let me know what you think about the idea of a console box even instead of a typical handheld or something for it. And then what about the PlayStation 5 in Japan? We see those supply numbers, the sales, not great, but Sony is having a hard time with the PS5. Do you think they'll recover in Japan over the next year or two? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.